Hi, just a quick one on the Prussian education system, which is the state-run education system still of today. Refers to a system of education established in Prussia as a result of education reforms in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, which has widespread influence since. Predominantly uses American political slogan in educational reform debates, since it was adopted by all American K-12 public schools and major universities as early as the late 18th century. Where are we? And is often used as a derogatory term for education in the service of nation building, teaching children and young adults blind obedience to authority and reinforcing class and race prejudice. I'm just going to go down to where are we? Here. The early American adopters, including Daniel Coit Gilman, who set up the General Education Board, later renamed the Rockefeller Foundation. The first president was of Johns Hopkins, John Jewett, at the University of Chicago. There's some American universities where it was put in. France and the UK failed to introduce similar systems until the 1880s. So the UK has also been having it since the 1880s. The Americas since 1843, I believe. UK from the 1880s. I'm just going to go down to, I'm going to leave a link to this so you can go and have a look yourselves. I'm just going to go down to the spread to other countries. State-oriented mass educational systems were instituted in the 19th century in the rest of Europe. They have become an indispensable component of modern nation-states. Public education was widely institutionalized throughout the world, and its development has a close link with nation-building, which often occurred in parallel. Such systems were put in place when the idea of mass education was not yet taken for granted. In Austria, the Empress used it to strengthen her hold over Austria. Michael Foucault sense in establishing this and other modern nation states' shape and formation. The Prussian reforms in education spread quickly through Europe, particularly after the French Revolution. The Napoleonic Wars first allowed the system to be enhanced after the 1806 crushing defeat of Prussia itself, and then to spread in parallel with the rise of the territory against Prussia after the Vienna Congress. While the Russian Empire was among the most reactionary regimes with regard to common education, the German ruling class in Estonia and Latvia managed to introduce a system there under Russian rule. The Russian principles were adopted by the governments in Norway and Sweden. The Prussian principles by the governments in Norway and Sweden to create the basis of primary and secondary schools across Scandinavia. Unlike in Prussia, the Swedish system aimed to expand even secondary school into the peasants and workers, as well in Finland. Then a Russian Grand Duchy with a strong Swedish elite, the system was adopted, education and the propagation of the national epic. The Kalevala was crucial for the Finnish nationalist Fennoman movement. The Finnish language achieved equal legal status with Swedish in 1892. France and the UK failed until the 1880s to introduce compulsory education. France, due to its conflicts between the radical secular state and the Catholic Church. In Scotland, local church-controlled schools were replaced by a state system in 1872. In England and Wales, the government started to subsidise schooling in 1833. Various measures followed till a local school board was set up under the Forster Act of 1870, the Education Act of 1870 in the UK. Free taxpayer finance and compulsory schooling were made universal in England and Wales by the Act of 1891. Schooling having been made compulsory by an Act of 1880. However, unlike Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, both private schools and homeschooling remained legal in the United Kingdom. And then we've got the early 19th century. American educators were also fascinated by German educational trends. In 1818, John Griscom gave the favourable report of Prussian education. English translations were made in French philosopher. Prussian approach was used, for example, in the Michigan Constitution of 1835, which fully embraced the Prussian system by introducing a range of primary schools, secondary schools, and the University of Michigan itself, all administered by the state and supported with tax-based funding. 1843, man travelled to Germany to investigate how the educational process worked. Upon his return to the United States, he lobbied heavily to have the Prussian model adopted. And there's a lot of public borrowing and exchange, drill and serfdom, legacy of the Prussian system, the end of the monarchy, legacy of the Prussian system after 1945. I'm going to leave a link to this in the description. But like I said, it's for the purposes of servitude. I've got this one here, I'll leave a link to this PDF later. Just quickly, the Prussian industrial history of public schooling. If you would understand anything, observe its beginning and its development. Aristotle. United States. It was first created in Prussia in the year 1716. It was by King Frederick William I as a means of solidifying the fledgling Prussian state into a uniform whole. Further developed by his son, King Frederick the Great, the Volksschulen, or public schools, were explicitly designed for the purpose of consolidating imperial power, as expressed by Thomas Alexander in 1918 in his historic study of the Prussian educational system. The Prussian citizen cannot be free to do and act for himself. That the Prussian is to a large measure enslaved through the medium of his school. That his learning, instead of making him his own master, forges the chain by which he is held in servitude. That the whole scheme of the Prussian elementary school education is shaped with the express purpose of making 99 out of every 100 citizens subservient. The elementary schools of Prussia have been fashioned so as to make spiritual and intellectual slaves of the lower classes. Like I said, I'm going to leave a link to this so you can go and have a look or read for yourselves. Just having a look now, where there's another bit somewhere that's they were bound to elaborate written instructions which embraced the entire range of their activities and provided an invariable rule for every administrative act. Here was an organisation in which military discipline, absolute subordination and centralisation were complete. This spirit of absolute subordination and central control was also built into the Prussian educational model, concerned that too expansive a course in instruction will awaken the spirit of ability within them. They brought it out to ensure that the spirit of ability within was permanently extinguished. Children were depersonalised and isolated from each other at an early age. Seated in rows, they were easily silenced, controlled and forced to engage in rote tasks. The sole purpose was to inculcate obedience. Taught fragmented subjects that deprived them of context and perspective, their thinking was intentionally and systematically stunted. These practices shaped the curriculum of the Prussian public schools for over a century. But it's still going on today. Basically, I'm going to leave a link to this. You can maybe want to pause and have a read. But like I said, it's still going on today. The all over the world, and in the UK it was 1880 when they brought it in. So people that think they've got an education and a higher education have not really got an education. It's an artificial intelligence. They think they're intelligent, but it's an artificial intelligence because of the way they've been educated. So it's not computers and robots that are the AI, it's the people. The people are the AI. They've got artificial intelligence because of the way they've been taught because they've been taught using the Prussian education system. Thank you.